Okay, so if you want a shortcut to understanding why global weather feels, well, so chaotic year after year, you really have to start with the El Niño Southern Oscillation, ENSO, right?
Exactly. It's this coupled ocean atmosphere system, basically the single biggest thing driving climate variability across the planet.
And it has those three modes: La Nina, the cold one; El Niño, warm; and then just neutral.
That's right. And today we're diving into a stack of forecasts, sources that confirm we have actually entered La Nina, the cold phase. But here's the thing. It's weak, it's borderline, and our sources, they're highlighting two massive complications for you. First, an incredibly volatile winter forecast, lots of competing factors. And second, a really high chance of a rapid major climate flip-flop in 2026. We call it ESO whiplash.
All right, whiplash. Okay, before we get to the complications, let's just quickly define the current state. La Nina. It's not just cold water, is it?
No, not really. It's more like an intensification of the normal situation. You get stronger easterly trade winds.
Pushing that warm surface water towards Asia and Australia?
Precisely. And that allows this deep, really cold water to well up intensely in the eastern Pacific, off South America.
Okay. But you said it's weak, borderline. What stands out in the sources about that?
Well, what's really interesting is that it's so weak, different agencies are actually disagreeing on whether to even call it La Nina.
Oh, really? Like who?
So NOAA, the U.S. agency, they have issued a La Nina advisory. They see the ocean cooling threshold being met, just barely. But the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, the BUMM, they're still saying neutral.
Huh. So why the disagreement between the experts? That seems significant.
It really boils down to how they measure it, their methodology. NOAA looks pretty directly at the sea surface temperature difference from average.
Okay, simple enough.
The BUM, though, uses something called a relative Niño index. And this is important. It's specifically designed to filter out the background hum of general ocean warming from, climate change.
Ah, so they're trying to isolate only the pure ENSO signal, making their criteria stricter.
Exactly. They need a stronger deviation from that warming background trend to declare it. So yeah, stricter criteria means they haven't called it yet.
Okay, so the signal itself is weak, maybe even debatable depending on who you ask. Does that weakness then trickle down? Does it mean the typical North American winter impacts are less certain? The classic split.
What split are you thinking of?
The colder and wetter Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, lots of snow potential, versus the warmer and drier Southwest, Southern Plains, more drought risk.
Right, that's the textbook La Nina pattern. And yes, the weakness makes the forecast far more volatile, not necessarily weaker overall, just messier. That classic split is still the baseline idea. Higher snow potential up north, rising drought risk down south.
But there's always a but.
But the sources flag two major wildcards that could seriously disrupt that neat pattern this year. First, there's a massive marine heat wave, unusually warm water sitting out in the Northeast Pacific.
How does that interfere?
It can act like a block. It creates this boom-bust uncertainty. It might deflect or weaken those storms that typically slam into the Pacific Northwest during La Nina.
Okay, warm water messing things up. But wait, if the La Nina cooling is weak overall, why are we also hearing concerns about potentially extreme, sharp cold snaps, especially in the eastern U.S.? That feels contradictory.
This is where it gets really interesting. We need to connect the ocean surface to what's happening way, way up in the stratosphere, thousands of feet up.
Okay, going high altitude.
We're currently in what's called an easterly quasi-biennial oscillation, the QBO. It's a pattern of winds high in the atmosphere over the tropics that flips direction roughly every 2 years. Right now they're blowing from the east.
And this easterly QBO, it interacts with the polar vortex.
Precisely. Think of the polar vortex, that huge ring of frigid air spinning over the Arctic like a giant spinning top. A strong, stable vortex keeps the cold locked up north. But an easterly QBO, it tends to make that top wobble. It destabilizes it.
And a wobbly vortex means?
It significantly increases the risk of something called a sudden stratospheric warming event, an SSW. That's when the vortex structure basically breaks down, weakens, or even splits. And all that frigid Arctic air doesn't stay put. It spills southward, suddenly.
So even with only weak ocean cooling from La Nina, the atmospheric setup, this QBO thing, makes us much more vulnerable to sudden, brutal cold snaps hitting the eastern U.S. and Europe, too.
You got it. Sharp, high-impact, short-duration cold. Not necessarily a colder winter overall, but potentially severe, damaging cold outbreaks.
Wow. Okay, that makes short-term planning, like for energy demand, incredibly tricky. Now, the sources also suggest this week La Niña won't stick around long.
Yeah, it looks pretty short-lived. Most models show it transitioning back to ENS neutral, so neither La Niña nor El Niño, probably by, say, January to March 2026. Pretty quick fade.
And looking even further out, past this winter and into 2026, what's the long-range picture?
Well, the models aren't waiting around in neutral for long. They show a pretty marked warming trend in the Pacific, kicking in almost immediately after La Niña collapses. There's a growing probability, quite a strong signal actually, for a full-blown El Niño developing by mid to late 2026.
Whoa. So a rapid swing from this weak cold phase, maybe straight into a warm phase. So thinking about those impacts, sectors like agriculture, say in the southern U.S., they might be dealing with drought risk now.
Right, under this weak La Niña.
Only to potentially face excessive rain, maybe flooding risks, just a year later under El Niño in 2026-27.
That is exactly what we mean by ENSO whiplash. It's this back-to-back stress of preparing for completely opposite extremes. Drought one year, deluge the next. It puts immense pressure on planning, especially for water resources and farming.
So, boiling it all down for you listening, what does this really mean? The next 18 months or so look defined by rapid swings, unpredictable extremes, rather than any kind of stable pattern.
Yeah, predictability is low. And I think the most immediate strategic takeaway, it's really for the energy sector and maybe disaster management folks, that increased risk of SSW-driven cold snaps tied to the QBO. And this weak La Niña interaction, it means utility operators, especially in the eastern U.S. and Europe, face a much higher threat of sudden, massive grid stress. Huge demand spikes.
So preparedness needs to focus less on just the average winter temperature and more on being ready for these high-impact, short, severe cold events.
Exactly. It's about the extremes hidden within the average.
A powerful reminder that even weak climate signals can pack a volatile punch. Definitely something to keep in mind, something for you to mull over as we head towards winter.